Welcome to another episode of Energetic Consulting's Sustainable Stories, where we are giving you insights into the leaders of the solar and energy storage industry and clean tech industry, and giving insights into the leaders and how they are getting through this tough time during coronavirus, COVID-19, and some of their routines and habits and rituals that have helped them through tough times and to develop grit and resilience. And today we have Durmus, the Managing Director of BayWa Renewable Energy Australia. Durmus has been in solar for well over 20 years. And Durmus is a bit of a phantom in some ways. A lot of people don't know his actual story, and I'm really keen to get into it today because I've known Durmus for many years, and he is a very modest individual. You've been in solar for over 20 years, Durmus. You've been designing solar systems for over 20 years. I remember when you were at Solar Sales out of Perth, and then started your own business in 2007, Solar Matrix, I think, which later got acquired by BayWa out of Germany. Now you're involved in BayWa, which as a total group is a $16 billion company, and you're a managing director running the organization here. And doing great things. And so, look, Durmus, welcome. Keen to have a chat and get under the hood of who you are.
Thanks, Russell. I think my goal is to change your view on me by the end of this interview. You're way too kind.
That's possible, because actually, I'm just going to launch straight into it here. I just learned off air that you actually had a documentary made about you at some point. We don't need to go right into it, but I find that fascinating.
I did, and I think we'll leave it. Maybe people can just search for it. What do you think? Yeah, no, it was done a couple of years ago. Yeah, a friend of mine thought it would be a nice story to interview me for a docu-series he was making of people who do what they're doing out of passion, and I think I fitted that idea. So he did that, and it was done all in German. He came to Australia to interview me. So it's, I think it's what I like about such things, not about the docus, but also with talking to you, is the questions you get asked, because such questions often make you think, oh, what am I doing? What I'm doing for, actually? Or it's really an eye opener, and I find that part extremely interesting. Gives you an insight for yourself, even on what you're doing.
Well, and I think, I mean, for starters, you're an A-type individual, and you're very modest, right? So you're very driven. You speak at least 3 languages that I know of. Knowing you, there's probably more.
Maybe one.
You're fluent in at least one of those languages, I'm pretty sure. No, you look, and you, what I love about you, and I kind of want to get straight into that, is this sense of humility that you have. You've been incredible over the years. I mean, you supported my business back when I still had an installation design, solar sales, retail business, and you've always been humble as long as I've known you. And where does that come from? Is that from your upbringing? Is that just was it your parents? Where did that sense of very little ego come from?
I think it was, yeah. I migrated to Germany when I was 3 or 4. My parents left me in Turkey with my grandmother because they went first to Germany, and so they could work. With me being there wouldn't have worked very well. So I came afterwards, and I think when you grow up in that working environment, and just as a migrant child, where you probably just don't want to, make too many, head waves or create attention. It was always to be more quiet and just do your stuff and just try and do it right. So it's that, but also I think over the years you develop, growing up in such an environment, you create some element of be that support mechanism for others and sympathy and empathy, which was probably one of my main driving forces as well to do what I'm doing later on. I feel we have almost we need way more. I think we don't have enough empathy in this world, and that's my driving force. So, look, I find in this world, I was blessed to be allowed or to go to Germany to be educated there and to take advantage of what was given to me. I think I have the responsibility to give that back, and I think the way you give that back, you do it not by, I don't know, not denigrating is not the right word, but you do it and you just think that is nice that you can actually share what you have been given.
Yeah, well, and you certainly do that. I mean, you've always been very generous with your time, your expertise, your knowledge, and I mean, what made you get into renewable energy in the first place? Was it, again, just that sense of wanting to give back in some way?
It was, yes. I wanted to always join Greenpeace. I thought I'm going to be one of those people on that whatever rainbow warrior, stopping boats, doing naughty things, but afterwards I realized, oh, that's probably just too idealistic to think that that's all what they do. It's probably a lot of office work behind the scenes as well. So, and solar was for me the next big thing where I thought, oh, it looked quite interesting. I joined the Greens quite when I was young in Germany, and I did even run for a parliament seat, state parliament, back when I was in Germany. Anyway, the way I got in there, and I thought solar was then the natural path. It was just coming up in those years. That was that in late 80s. So, and yeah, so that was the main reason, needing to make a change in this world and have a job which gives me a sense in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have joined, these kind of sustainability, renewable energy type industries for similar reasons, but not everyone always makes it, and a lot of people will hit the wall and hit the overwhelm because it's a tough industry. I mean, it's, we've been on the solar coaster for many years. I mean, you've been doing it for over 20 years, and God, the industry has just gone up and down so much. I mean, for you, what's driven you through the low points to just keep going, and not only just keep going, but you have an ability to thrive,
but way too nice. Yeah, I think you're forgetting that piece of luck, Russell. I think because I've been doing it for a long time. Look, luck comes to play as well, but you probably need to sow the seeds for luck to happen. I'm guessing I was, I mean, just to tell you a quick story how I got into the industry in Australia. When I came here, that is one of my maybe lower points in life, not coming to Australia, but when I came here, it was very difficult for me to find a job, which was in late 2001. And it took me 5 months, and it was by coincidence, my wife just sent an email because I think she was frustrated by my frustration not finding a job to someone she found on the yellow pages, and that was Solar Sales. That was John Hall. And he replied back and said, yep, I'm for an interview. And then Amanda said, oh, this guy replied, you have an interview? And I said, really? So I put a suit on. I don't like suits, Russell, and I don't like ties. I even wore a tie. So I go to this office, and it was in this warehouse, and then I was totally overdressed. And so I'm sitting opposite of John, and he's interviewing me for this position. In my back then, I would say maybe not as good English. So he's facing me, and I can see his screen. And after a couple of minutes, his screensaver comes on, and it's actually a Playboy screensaver. So this anyway, and his pictures coming up. I'm trying to concentrate. I want a job, and then these pictures, but it's just a funny story. Anyway, I got the job, and the rest is history. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, there's been some real characters in the industry over the years, and often we only see them from a distance. They're up on a stage or whatever it might be, and we just don't get the insight into them. And yeah, I mean, your story of, I mean, you were doing solar back in Germany. I mean, what
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the scene like 20 years ago there? Because that was really before the boom.
It just started over there. But I just left, I think, when the big boom hit, and so we were doing a lot of hot water systems. That's how it started for me, and we're doing quite interesting hot water systems as well. For example, large solar collector arrays for floor heating, and using the floor and the roof where we had pipes, and also for cooling systems where we ran air through. The guy I was working with was really clever, I have to say. And then PV started around 98. That's when we got involved in PV systems. And yeah, and in 2000 we made the decision to come to Australia.
Hmm.
So and look, the thriving or resilience, I think I just that luck element, what I mentioned to you before, it's often meeting the right people or the people and doing the right thing. That I am not sure, in all honesty, if I would have been here if I would have not joined BayWa. I think it has been an extremely tough time. That solar coaster you mentioned before is really not a healthy thing for people's minds and businesses. It was tough over the years. I have to admit, it's just, you are close to relationship, it doesn't work, because you think, look, let's just stick, it will be okay, and lose a lot of, be that money, or you spend a lot of time. I think a lot of people who are self-employed out there, I do feel for them. It's not easy in this industry.
And what do you personally do to build up your grit and resilience? Are there specific, habits that you have, routines, or is it, like, how do you get your mind into that healthy space?
I think I would say it's talking to a lot of people helps me a lot, and just exchanging ideas and listening to their stories. And I think empathy helps as well, because I think, as hard as it is for me, I always think there are people who are doing it much harder
Yeah.
than I am. And not sure if that sounds silly, but I think that is the truth. There are really people out there who have it harder. So, and the other thing, what is for me a driving force, is I am, what I said to you before, I am in that fortunate situation that I can do what I can do.
Yeah.
And it is, I think, a responsibility I have to continue. And that is that mindset. I'm here to make a change, and I can't just now give up and say, because that means the others will win, the others being the others which we shall not name, maybe.
Yeah.
And I, that's, and I could now say, oh, look, I look into the eyes of my kids, and oh yeah, I'll do it for them. That's part of it. It's the part is the bigger picture. I think the world needs this industry, and I think I play a insy-wincy role with my knowledge. And if we all add that insy-wincy roles, we are a big force.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always had that sense from you that you're always trying to do something in some way. I mean, you've done a lot of Aboriginal, community, Indigenous community work, off-grid work, supporting those communities as well, which a lot of people wouldn't know. And it's not as if you're like, sitting on a throne as the managing director and haven't actually been an installer. I mean, you and I have both been installers.
Yeah.
We've both had an installation background once upon a time.
It's the best, but Russell, believe me, that is, if I sit in the thing, I told you I had a board meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
Mate, those presentations, they can get to you. Whereas if you're out there and doing something for these communities or for someone, that's actually real giving back. I'm not saying that board meeting is, of course, important as well to maintain the business operation, but I think when I'm out there and you can do it, and for me, look, you're an electrician. I'm not even an electrician. I love it, but I love watching people like you doing what they're doing. I often carry cables, dig trenches, can put a panel onto a frame. I can program an inverter, but gee, there is a lot more to it. And that's real fun. That's good. In the end, you turn the switch and the light comes on and the people No, they got
Yeah,
power without a genset. How cool is that?
it
That's
really is fun. And I mean, it's, I haven't, lifted a tool since the noughties, but I kind of miss it, like I kind
yeah,
of, instead of being in the office with the business shirt on, is actually just to kind of get your hands dirty and
yeah.
something very rewarding.
Mm.
You mentioned earlier that, you like to speak to a lot of people. Do you have any particular role models or mentors in your life now?
Look, not really. I would say it. What I always look in the early years when you grow up, I think it's friends.
Mm,
I find that is an extremely important basis for our lives these days, to have actually a healthy mind, to have good friends around you you can talk to. And then I was more inspired looking at what they did and what they achieved, or what they were able to do. So that was for me a driving force. Um, on a bigger scheme, of course, nowadays I look at people who make a change in this world. Am I thriving to be like that? Yes and no, but look, people who make changes for me are critical thinkers, which is,
mm,
I think, so important these days in our world. It's unbelievable. The amount of news which comes out, which we have to critically look at, is so important. So in light of that, people like, be that a Chomsky or even an Edward Snowden or a Julian Assange, I find people like that who expose things and think critically and put their lives at risk, I find amazing. And people like, in my younger years, a Gorbachev who dismantled the whole Soviet Union.
mm.
And bro, that's courage, and that's courage I find sometimes we are missing these days, uh, on that level, because we are almost there again, where we need courageous people to break up certain systems again and go on a different path.
Mm. Yeah, and it's so true. And I think, you know, a lot of us are sort of drip fed along the way of the news, or, or who we think we're meant to be and how we're meant to be in the public arena. And that's what I like about you, is that I've always noticed one thing, which is that you're very uniquely you. You haven't tried to be anything else other than who you are. And you have this self-deprecating manner that, you and I have had dinners and lunches and drinks many times, um, and with all kinds of people in the room, and you always are just you. You never try and be anything but yourself. And I find, to me, that's a role model position, because I think there's a lot of people that have come into, say our industry, maybe they've only had a solar business for 3 years, for example.
Mm.
Um, and they're trying to be a particular something. They're trying to be successful. They're trying to be, like, hey, I've got all the answers. I know what I'm doing. I'm driven. I'm, driving a fancy car or whatever. Some people.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, when you've gone through the struggles and the challenges, a lot of that goes out the window, because you're like,
yeah,
it's just like, it doesn't matter. What
yeah,
matters is who you are and how you show up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a level of honesty as well, which is required, Russell. And not that I'm saying I'm more honest than others, but it's often, it doesn't help if you have that facade. In the end, this is a small industry. Look how long we have known each other,
Mm.
and a lot of the colleagues I've known, like Andrew Hall, who is a colleague of mine, was John's son. He was
Yeah.
maybe 6 when I met him first time, and now he's working with me. So it is, I think, you're gonna get caught out. So let's not pretend things. I think if we are honest, and certainly Australia, what I love about Australia is that we are such a small country, and we can be, it's almost a family. Why
Yeah.
we can achieve way more if we say, yeah, if we just don't try and be someone else, because it's sooner or later it's uncomfortable anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
And how do you, are there any particular things that you do to support yourself during, stressful times to deal with it? Because I know you're often having, those phone conversations with Europe at the end of the day, or, what, you're at the end of the day and they're at
Yeah.
the start of their day, and that can be really challenging. I mean, I know you've got a green thumb, so I know you do, some of those activities, but What do you
Yeah.
do in the morning? Like, what do you get up? What do you do?
Look, it's I I try and read lately a bit more again. I wasn't, and the garden work is only what my wife tells me what I should be doing, because I'm not allowed to plant too much stuff besides of that pomegranate tree I put in. So it's but look, it's I do like just sometimes sitting back and trying to read a book, and maybe try and yeah, meeting up with friends is another important thing. I need that exchange. You otherwise have too much going on in your head on a
Mm.
day-to-day basis, and this industry has a lot of stories and frustrations to get rid of. So if you keep that all in there, I think it's hard.
Yeah.
Just apologies. I think someone in Germany is trying to get me for a sec. One sec. Um, yeah, it yeah, those things. And you know what? Another thing where I sometimes forget work is when I do play soccer sometimes. Can you believe it? So I used to do it once a week, but since the virus has hit us, we stopped because we play indoors. But that's, yeah, one other thing I like doing. I wanted to be a soccer star, Russell. Didn't work out.
I can see Maradona here, you know,
Without the
the hand of,
drugs.
the hand of God. And what about failure in your career? Have you gone through any failures, and how did you overcome it? I mean, and what's your thoughts around failure in general?
I I I don't think, and this is again without arrogance, I don't think I had failures, or not in the sense I would see them as failures, which maybe is where I think, look, if you fail, a mistake happens and you just get up and learn from it.
Mm.
That's probably more my mindset, and also with the colleagues, the way I hope I handle them in that way, where I do say, as long as you can, if something goes wrong and you did what you did was at that point in time the right decision and you can justify it, that's all you need.
Mm.
Then you get up and you learn from it and you move on,
Yeah.
and have it in mind. I think it becomes a failure if you do it a couple of times
Yeah.
and it's the same thing. So, and that's probably hopefully out there where people, especially at the moment, don't see themselves as a failure if it doesn't work out, because often a failure can also happen out of external factors, which we both have experienced several times in this industry in particular. So it's nothing of your doing. So it's quite important to have that resilience and say, hey, look, let's let's make something out of this.
And often, what I've learned is that those, perceived failures are actually a gift in the end.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I mean, it makes you stronger, you build more mental muscle, and perhaps get greater clarity around what it is actually that you really want to do. I mean, I've certainly had, quite low points in my career where I thought I had failures, but it's turned out to be the best thing I could have
yeah.
possibly imagined,
That's
you know,
that's right.
and you
Yeah.
go through those low points. But, I mean, and you mentioned that you do speak to a lot of people in the industry. I mean, I know you do. I mean, you spend a lot of time on the phone with various
Mm,
individuals. You've seen a lot of business leaders come and go over the years, but success leaves clues, and
mm.
I'm sure that you would have seen some commonalities between the business leaders that you've come into contact with that have been successful. Are there two or three things that you think is common in good leadership and successful leaders?
I I would say I, I think from a leadership, yeah, maybe trust, I think, is an important factor, and patience, and trust in relation to what I have achieved. I wouldn't have been able to do without the colleagues which I had over the years, I would say. And I think it, without them and without maybe the trust they give me and I give them, it wouldn't have been possible. So I think if you are a leader, you have to let go sometimes. And I don't do it often enough, I have to even admit, but I,
Mm.
do it to an extent, but it is so important. If you want to grow something, you can't do it by yourself. And I think it's much nicer to do it together anyway.
Yeah.
And patience is the other thing. You know where we are, Russell, in this industry. Without patience, I think it's an extremely important, I don't know, characteristic or skill to have to if you want to lead a business, or if you want to even lead your life, mate.
Oh my gosh. And, you know, as an A-type, I mean, for so many of us in this industry are A-types wanting to achieve something, you know, really great. And it's hard to have that patience. I mean, it's hard to kind of slow down sometimes, especially when you might have an image of what the outcome looks like, what the vision is, but it's just kind of grinding to get there. It's really, really tricky.
And with that though, if you have look, I do have kids, and that instant gratification is in them probably more, and I have it as well. I have to admit, I'm an impatient person, but you look why you are impatient. It is important to look at that bigger picture, and where do you want to get to is probably then the journey maybe becomes more important than that instant gratification thing. It is hard, but look, if anyone would have said, oh, look, I know 25 years now I've been doing this, or 24, right? And we both know warranties haven't hit us yet. That's how long the warranties are sometimes. And I've seen so many companies come and go. So talk about patience. You have to be looking quite far ahead and say, hey, look, what are we trying to do here? Yeah.
And I mean, look, it's a really difficult time, and I know a lot of businesses are impacted. People have, you know, closed doors. People have lost jobs. The unfortunate thing about that is it's not the first time in this industry. I mean, you know, there have been many occasions, or, you know, several major occasions when that has actually happened before. Either rebates changing, tariffs changing, and we know that, you know, sales would spike. And then all of a sudden, nothing. The phones would go dead for, you know, 2 or 3 months. And so we've been on that journey for quite a time. So I guess for those businesses, like right in that hardship, right at this moment, I mean, do you have any words of wisdom around having that patience, perhaps to see it through, or to find their peace at this time?
Yeah, look, I do feel, I do think a lot about them. What I would say, oh, gee, that is a tough one, Russell. I think for the ones who have been doing this for a while, I hope they know there is better times coming. So, because they have done this now several times, for the ones who are in it for the first time, I just hope they can get up and learn from what we are doing. I don't think they are by themselves in this industry. There is a lot of other companies doing it tough. I really hope they can look at their business models, and it gives them time. What I said to you before, that failure, they shouldn't see that as their own failure, but what can they learn for their own business of this doing outside their control is important. It's more, don't give up and try and find help where possible. There is, I think, a lot of people out there who are happy to help, be that on a company level or on a personal level. But it's, I do feel for them, but I hope they find the strength to get themselves out of this. And
I mean, along with, you know, the challenge often comes fear. I mean, fear is there, obviously fear of losing a business or losing a job. I mean, there are plenty of people that will listen to, you know, our interview that may be working for a very large company, a big energy retailer, but maybe their hours have been scaled back, or maybe they're on the JobKeeper, you know, allowance, or whatever it might be. What about fear? I mean, in your personal life, have you gone through any great fears, you know, and it could be personal, could be family based, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, fear is, from a family perspective, I think I'm okay. Obviously, always fear for your children's health, but and from a business perspective, which is probably more accompanying me on a regular basis, it is that I might do something wrong, which then causes others to suffer, be that the company has to shut down and we have to let people go. It's that fear is still there, even after letting go of Solar Matrix and now being with BayWa. I sometimes probably run the company way too much like it is my own, but it's again driven probably what I experienced in Australia, that up and down, which Germany may not be that aware of what I've gone through or what this industry has gone through. So that fear is really continuously with me. I admit I didn't predict a coronavirus outbreak, but I was thinking, oh Jesus, when is the next downturn going to come for this industry? So, and that, how am I going to manage it? So now I'm in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, somehow what you mentioned earlier about having that long-term vision. So for instance, you know, I know you've mentioned that you're very purpose-driven, you know, and you're very driven to make a difference. And sometimes we just have to see not the next 3 months, although that's critical just to, you know, put bread on the table for many people. But okay, what's it going to be like in 12 months, 2 years, 3 years time? Can I see it through somehow? And if not, sometimes there is a hard call to be made for, you know, for some people that, you know what, I need to change just because of the circumstance. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm interested in, along the way, you know, you've had some, you know, incredible experiences, and I know that work that you did with the Indigenous communities is very dear to your heart. Because often when we've had a beer and, you know, you've often spoken about that work, and what did that really mean for you, giving back in that way, that aspect of, you know, giving back to those communities?
For me, when I started solar, it actually was, there was no grid connect systems, Russell. It was, solar was really there for people without electricity, and you actually make a change besides of the environmental impact. I think to bring electricity is a bit of a, I would say, a responsibility for our lives to change that luxury which we have, which we just take for granted. So doing solar in the early days was about that. You know, when I came to Australia, be that pastoral stations, Aboriginal communities, and it is such a nice feeling to turn something on and it works, and you know they're not going to run a generator. So for me, it's actually rather a giving exercise. If I'm there, it's just nice to be there. Not only am I myself learning how to put a system together, because off-grid systems are so different one from another. So that's quite nice. And also, it is also nice to see the communities in their own environment and see what they're doing. So that's a totally new experience for me. Whenever I see it, it's yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it must give you a real sense of fulfillment and injection into, you know, your motivation.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
Durmus, I have a burning question here. I've known you for so many years now. You kind of haven't really, you don't look like you've changed. You're like eternal. You don't even have a grey hair on your head. How have you managed this?
Can I tell a little stupid but arrogant sounding story? I needed a passport, and that my German passport ran out last year, and so as always I was a bit late applying for it, so I needed it quickly because I had to travel overseas. So I'm getting all the documents together, and then it was obviously needed a picture. So I found these pictures because I have a box where I keep my passports and pictures. So I grabbed the picture and said, okay, that will do. And then I grabbed my old passport and was about to go to the German consulate. I opened that old passport up, and it was identical. It was the same picture which I found. And I thought, what was I thinking that I get away with it? But now I need to admit, I thought, that can't be that old. But it was 10 years old. So anyway, on a not so nice note, when you look young, I mean, I know I'm 51 now, but when I was younger, I looked young all the time. And it was always me when we went somewhere with friends that they picked up on. I was the oldest, but it was always me who wasn't allowed into a pub or somewhere because they said, you're not 18. So I had to always carry identity cards with me and the others didn't.
Well, you've weathered the storm well of, you know, this industry. Somehow it doesn't look like you have too many, you know, battle wounds.
Yeah. Not yet.
And I think,
high blood pressure, that's all.
well, but from at least externally, from the outside, I mean,
Yeah.
you seem to have a good attitude, which then balances out the stress. You know, you're always laughing, you're always smiling. I mean, you know, it's not to say that you're not sitting with a heavy burden, but you keep
Right.
a good attitude.
Yeah, you have to have that humor. And I think, and that's the other thing. Look, I personally don't approach people and think they're going to rip me off or do things. It might be difficult, but I think we have to, it comes back to that trust level.
Yeah.
Russell, let's just hope that people are there for the good. I might contradict, and I have these arguments with my wife with critical thinking. You know, critical thinking is one thing and always question things, but also you have that trust that the next person to you is there for a good reason, and let's work together. And humor plays in my life, I need to tell you, a huge role. I think without humor, I wouldn't be where I am, mate. And you will see it in our office as well. It is a lot of fun in the office because we spend a lot of time doing what we're doing. We need to have a laugh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. So, well, I think a lot of us right now want to come and work in your office when you're back on deck. That's a good place to be.
Yeah, I might get sick of my jokes, but let's see.
And you know, obviously, you know, the situation that we're in isn't going to go on forever. So where do you see, you know, the solar industry going, the energy storage industry, clean tech going? I mean, are you seeing any trends for the industry where you think it'll be next year or in 2 years' time?
Not to a huge level, which are driven from an industry perspective, unfortunately, Russell. I'm a tiny bit disappointed by the political drivers for our industry. I think whatever is going to happen, storage is one of those things which I think will become more and more important, mainly because of grid constraints. The next couple of years will be driven by a saturation, and then we're needing to do something to put more solar on, because in such a short period, let's say a 24-month period, we're not going to renewing our lines, our power lines, to actually capture more PV, which is unfortunate. So, but in order to have more PV, so storage will come, but also some sort of smart grid technologies probably need to be deployed by the grid operators. So do I see changes there? Yes, I do see that coming. And maybe we need to have some smart tools for the household as well. If we want to have solar, we need to install other things to allow our solar to be connected to the grid. Yeah. But I wish there would be more of a political drive to foresee what's coming, because the grid operators really need to move up their game a tiny bit to open it up for more solar. I think they can't stop it. I'm sure they have realized that by now.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, you know, there's so many businesses that are looking at energy as a service and like expanding their portfolio of, you know, products that they offer, because they know the whole grid is changing, the dynamic is changing, so they need more products. But I think some countries are moving quicker.
Yeah.
So look, it is a dynamic landscape. It's forever changing. You know, you've mentioned using critical thinking to approach, you know, the information that is provided to us. I'm also interested in your view on creativity, because I think business is all about creativity, actually. I think to be different and unique, and to really, you know, have unique sales, marketing strategies in business are critical. Do you have a view on creativity? Do you nurture creativity? And you know, if that means playing a guitar for you, great. But I mean, you know, business creativity.
Yeah, It is. We are. Yes and no. It's probably one of the things I struggle maybe the most with to answer. From the creativity element is there. What I find ourselves in this extremely low margin environment and dog eat dog industry, that you are often not left with too many options to be creative.
Mm.
I think that I personally think I would probably try and do a bit more than what I'm doing at the moment. So I do have certain ideas, but I look at them and I think, oh gee, how much will that cost us? What will the return be? How do I explain that to the powers to be,
Mm.
to do those things? I I I think yes, creativity is extremely important. Otherwise, the next crisis is around the corner. And if
Mm.
you don't implement new ideas where you think this is going, then yeah, it it's not it's not going to work. So yeah, it is important, and I think where this is going, I think solar energy will become more of a service industry than just a product supply industry sooner or later, and that will change the landscape quite a bit if we rather sell electricity or create more knowledge base around solar from an off-grid or perspective.
But I mean, do you ever create? I mean, because I know you, your phone rings off the hook, and you've always got people coming to you. You've got meetings. You've got constant matters to attend to. Do you ever just take some time out to cultivate that critical thinking, or just to create space where you can actually see the bigger picture, to step back?
Not really. That's the sad part, unfortunately. The time is a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
I admit I haven't been working as much over the weekends, maybe in the last couple of months. That was the time where I just maybe sat back and just relaxed a bit. But now I don't take too much time off. That's yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But look, because I've been doing it for so long, the ideas I have are probably because I talk to a lot of people and then I read a lot of magazines and I think, oh yeah, could that work? What will happen here? So that's where it comes from. I am really quite happy with what I'm doing to be in this industry and to be where I am. So that in itself is a nice thing. So for me, it's not necessarily, I don't consider it as I need to work again. So it's actually okay. So
Well, it's about that work-life integration.
Yeah.
I mean, people used to talk about work-life balance, but modern thinking has kind of moved past that now. It's really integration,
Yeah,
and
it is.
often for me, I work 7 days a week, but maybe I'd work a little bit less every day, but I'd work 7 days, and then I get up and and do some exercise to keep it balanced. But I'm happy to work 7 days.
Yeah.
Now I know you've got lots of wisdom to share, as you have been on the interview today, and I always ask my guests that if you were at the very end of your days had come to a finish, it's your last day on planet Earth, and you had to leave 3 pearls of wisdom for your grandchildren. Let's say, at this stage you had grandchildren. It could be a word, it could be a sentence, it could be a phrase. Are there 3 particular words of wisdom that you would leave to those grandchildren?
Yeah, it's probably along the things we have discussed before. It is that it is about patience. I would say the critical thinking they need to have in an environment where we are extremely flooded with news and information. And one other thing which is probably these days more important is mental strength.
Yeah,
is important. I think the flood of information and probably judgments which come upon us because of social media can take the toll. I personally, and I'm guessing you as well, Russell, we grew up where the only people who could have been mean to us were in our school environment and maybe what would they have said to you? Maybe if I may be personal, oh, Russell, you don't have hair, or to me, or to Mush, you have too much hair. But nowadays, anything you post can get a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and that can be detrimental to a young person's or even an older person's mental health. So I think to have that strength and stand above outside judgment is important, and rather listen to friends who are near you. So yeah, and alongside the patience, I think, and the critical thinking, I think those three things would be quite important to pass on to get you through life.
Well, Durmus, it's been an honor getting under the hood and just getting to know you a little bit better and how your mind works and more about your life story and the backstory of you in the solar industry. I really want to thank you for being so open and sharing so openly so all can benefit. I hope I've certainly learned something today, and I hope others have as well. And I just want to share with you that one of the things I love most about you is that you're always smiling and laughing. And I know when I've had really difficult days and I've had to call you about something in the past, and I always feel uplifted by that.
Thanks, Russell. That's really kind.
No, and I mean, this whole interview series really has a lot to do with at its very core about attitude.
Yeah.
And how to cultivate a strong attitude and a resilient one, and how we deal with tough times. And I think you lead from the front foot. I mean, you are a leader, and you show many people that might be a tough day, but you can keep on smiling.
Yeah, we have to. No, thank you so much, Russell, and really appreciated it. Really, it was, thanks for all that, again, trust you had in me, and great questions, I have to say. Really nice, was good. They made me think certainly about myself.
Well, we've had some fun, and thanks to Mush, and we might do it again in the future, but for now, we'll sign off, and just thanks for an hour of conversation.
Stay healthy. See you, Russ. Bye, mate.